Welcome to the Mike White Podcast, where I, Mike White, share my conversations and book reviews through my journey to learn all that goes on in this amazing world. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 15 of the Mike White Podcast. So this time of year is very popular for New Year's resolutions. It's a little late, but you guys hopefully are a couple of weeks in to your goals. And I want to do an episode on goals. I always thought they're an important part of life. And this is kind of a book review, but it's more of an article and video review. But I'm going to do a mini review for Gene Moroney's writings on what exactly a central purpose is and why it is important. And this subject is way more in depth than what I will discuss on the pod. So I'll have the article and video in the show notes linked. I highly recommend checking these out, and we'll just dive right into it. So I've always been a big fan of New Year's resolutions. You have that time between New Year's and Christmas when nothing much is going on. You can reflect on your values and how well your actions are contributing to those values. Then create goals that are in line with these values, and then the actions can be tracked and evaluated moving forward. So in this whole process, determining values has always been my most difficult mental exercise. Over the years, I've accumulated my list. It has not changed for some time, and it goes like this. So number 1 is freedom. Number 2 is health. Number 3 is relationship with loved ones. And my number 4 value is productive achievement. And I won't go into why exactly I chose these and why in that order, but it took lots of thought and reflection. Writing these down and evaluating them has made a huge difference in my quality of life. It made my everyday decisions easy because I compared the choices to my values. However, I recently realized there's something even more I can do. That is to have a central purpose. I always had something like this in the back of my head, but I never wrote it down or completely formulated it. Last summer, I watched a video from an objectivist intellectual, Gene Moroney, and in this video, she talks about a central purpose being your top productive goal. I knew productive achievement brought me happiness, but I never defined what kind of achievement. I never truly asked myself, what exactly do I want to do in this life? I realized in the Navy that I wasn't integrating my values. I was productive in the submarine force, but it went against my other values. Yes, the United States has always been a bastion for freedom, but I didn't feel like I was doing enough to protect our freedoms. I started to think the biggest risk to freedom and individual rights was more a risk from thought leaders within the country than by foreign brutes that I dedicated my time and effort to defend against. My health took a beating as well, because I never figured out how to accomplish the mission while also getting sleep and exercising regularly. I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day at sea and just being horrified. I barely recognized the pale, droopy-eyed, puffy, soft human in front of me. Ultimately, my relationship with loved ones left much to be desired in the submarine force as well. While in the submarine, communication was almost non-existent. When we were back in port, extreme COVID measures prevented most all socialization. Additionally, I was so bad at the academics in the submarine training pipeline that I spent a ton of my free time in the building studying to stay in the program. I thought spending my life to maintain the U.S. submarine force as the most dominant in the world was the best central purpose for me, but it clearly was not. So why do I tell you this? This is how I realized the importance of the central purpose and not just recognizing values alone. While recognizing values has greatly improved how I make decisions and go through life, it is not foolproof. Determining a central purpose in addition to the values would have helped guide me in my actions. As Gene Moroney says, done right, a central purpose provides 3 psychological benefits. 1, It simplifies everyday decision making by clarifying your top priority and setting a standard for judging lesser ones. 2, it connects mundane actions to a selfish end, thereby making them meaningful and motivating. 3, it ensures you make visible progress across the years of your life rather than falling into a rut or burning out. So what is my central purpose? That's something I'm still trying to determine. I know I love problem solving and making things more efficient. I also love flexibility in schedule and learning new things. However, by no means have I clearly defined a central purpose yet. It may not even be related to my job, but it is definitely something I want to define soon. I'll make determined central purpose one of my New Year's resolutions. I hope you guys take some time to reflect on values and your central purpose if you haven't done so already. And don't forget, I'll have the link of the blog post and the video for the Gene Maroney's central purpose article and video in the show notes. And then just to wrap up the podcast, so here are some of my New Year's resolutions. We'll document them to see how this goes next year. But I liked Sahil Bloom. If you guys ever follow him on Twitter, Instagram, he's got some really good motivational content and a lot of like tips and tricks as well, just professionally. And I like his mindset. So I kind of stole his goal setting format for this year to see how it went. So I have kind of big overarching goals and then checkpoint goals that are lower. So big overarching goals are financial freedom, and I'm defining that as work when I want, eat what I want, and travel when I want. I think a good goal for me is if I can get $100,000 a year of passive income, I would be able to do those things. So that's a big time goal, not necessarily in a year, but just something I want to work towards. Number 2, start a family. Number 3, contribute to the Bitcoin space. As you guys know, I'm crazy about Bitcoin. I think it's awesome. I don't know how I can best contribute yet, though. So I don't know the best metric to measure that as well. I know Bitcoin Twitter is really big, and I have a very small Twitter following. Maybe me being prominent on Twitter would mean that I somehow created value. But overarching goal, contribute to the Bitcoin space. Much smaller goal is to figure out how I can contribute to the Bitcoin space. So the next goal is maximize health and fitness. I think this is always a good one for anyone, just for longevity, to live the longest, best quality life you can. So for me, the measurables will be pull-ups. So I want to raise my pull-up max to greater than 30. My push-ups greater than 80. I'm really bad at push-ups, so that's going to be the tough one. And then be able to do pistol squats. So if you guys don't know, pistol squats are those one-legged squats where your other leg is like making an L straight out when you go down. So I want to be able to do those on both legs. And then you guys know, running a marathon this year. This another podcast series, Marathon Training. Highly recommend. Check it out. Me and Clark Blunt every week. But yeah, so my marathon goal is a 7:30 pace. And I don't exactly know what the total time is for that, but an average of a 7:30 pace for the whole 26.2 miles. And during that marathon, want to be no sugars, no grains. And then a weight goal, just overall weight goal. I think 160 is my best weight. I'm doing this podcast at about 169. So got some ways to go there. But so yeah, those are the big goals. So checkpoint goals. So these I think I can do, make some large progress in this year. First is to become an Excel wizard. I know for business, everyone says Excel is super beneficial and helpful. So I want to maximize my use of that. And I like coding, and it will be fun. So in addition to coding, so that's my number 2, learn SQL and Python. So if any of you guys want to learn coding, I always been asking a lot of people, and Python seems to be like the most recommended, good for beginners. So I'll learn that. Get a consulting internship. So MBA is coming up very quickly. I'm going to need an internship. So it's a goal I need to do if I want to go into consulting. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So this is under the health and fitness category. I want to train at least once a week once I start school. And I just really, for a lot of reasons, but ultimately to be able to defend myself. I can't fight. I would never try to pick a fight, but I think it's important to, if you had to, be able to do it. And then just the learning aspect of it and the movement, I think, will be beneficial. So, try that out. Complete a Murph. So if you guys haven't done a Murph, it is in honor of Lieutenant Michael Murphy. Dude's a badass. Penn State naval officer. He was a Navy SEAL. He's killed in action. And this is from what I read on the internet. So sorry if this isn't exactly right, but one of his favorite workouts was he would wear a weighted vest and do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 squats. And at the beginning and end of the exercise, he would run a mile with that weighted vest. So I did the Murph last year without a vest, and it took me like well over an hour. So this year I want to do that workout less than an hour, and next year I'll add some weight, hopefully, if I meet that goal. And now with both the podcast goal is kind of, I think it would be cool eventually if I shifted this to a Bitcoin podcast. I got to get a lot better at Bitcoin, but this is good practice. So another goal is to publish a podcast at least once a week. I've been doing that with the marathon training episode, but I have that and then my interview series to make sure I do at least one of those once a week. So sorry, hope I didn't bore you guys with all the goals, but those are examples of my own. Really, as long as they're applicable to you, right? Like you really believe in them and want to do them, and they're measurable. What's it? The SMART acronym. I forgot what that stands for again, but they always something like measurable, realistic, and like time based. Those are good goals. So I probably could get a little more specific, but hopefully you guys have some good ones, and it leads you to a happy and healthy 2023. Can you guys believe that? Holy cow. But that's all I got for the podcast. We'll do an interview next week.
Thank you for listening to the Mike White Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mike White Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a great day.